From being considered the best lightweight in the world, to even so-called GOATs like Conor McGregor being terrified of him, here's why nobody wants to fight Dustin Poirier. Sure, they probably weren't that afraid of him when he was in featherweight, but ever since he moved to lightweight, things have changed drastically. Do you remember his 5-fight win streak after 2016, which was only broken when he lost against Khabib Nurmagomedov in 2019? That was crazy, and we all know that Dustin would have gone on to add more wins here had he not been up against the actual GOAT, and he proved that as well. You see, after this one miss, Poirier went on yet another win streak. And by the way, this included winning against huge fighters like Conor McGregor. Yeah, I guess there's no denying that he's one of the best lightweights in the UFC right now, and his current rank proves that as well. And you all know, no one gets such success without giving their all to this sport, and that's exactly what Poirier's done. I mean, I've yet to see someone as composed as he is. He really is a complete fighter with no weaknesses. There's a reason that everyone goes crazy for his amazing striking skills, right? Because Dustin's one of the best boxers in the UFC, and his performance is above anyone else's. You know this man's built for attrition. He's a southpaw, but he's got great power in both hands, power that he's never afraid to use. But that's not all. Dustin also has great durability in the octagon, and his stamina just never seems to run out, no matter how tired or battered he is. That's right, the king never gives up. When he's in the octagon, you're likely to see Poirier occupying his opponent's lead hand with his own, and shooting sharp crosses into his foe's chins. And even though Poirier can easily throw punches from a good distance, he's not afraid to close the gap for some more direct and destructive damage, delivering absolutely lethal right hooks right into his rival's face. So he can fire the cross without changing stance, but he can shift with the punch when he knows it's okay. And that just shows how good he is with his footwork. But there's more to this fighter than what meets the eye. You see, one of Dustin's unique abilities is how easily he can throw punches from both hands. Sure, being a southpaw means that he's got great power with the right hook, but that doesn't mean that he won't use his left hand when need be. And Dustin's also got some really amazing jabs. I mean, just look at his fight against Eddie Alvarez. Everyone saw how Poirier snapped Eddie's head back with that powerful jab. And do you remember his great combination of punching skills against Justin Gaethje? He was so good with looping those hooks and uppercuts that Justin hardly got any time to focus on his striking. That poor opponent was constantly shelling up, as anyone would really when they're up against someone who's putting together 6 and even 7 punch combinations with such ease, like Dustin was. To be honest, that fight was a treat to watch. But enough about Dustin's jabs now. Let's talk a bit about those powerful legs too, shall we? Because I've got a lot to say here. And why wouldn't I? After all, when was the last time you saw someone so good at kicking? I'll tell you, you haven't. You see, no one is as good as Dustin is with his kicks, and he proved that much in his second fight against McGregor, where his nasty calf kicks delivered some major blows to the Irish athlete. After that fight, people really started taking note of how great Dustin's kicks were. But that wasn't the first time he'd shown us those skills. Nope, he'd done the same when he was opposite Dan Hooker, who was another very powerful opponent. Everyone who saw that fight would remember Poirier's crazy left kicks that night and how he was so good with the standard left roundhouse. And his skills on this front don't end here. In case some of you aren't aware of this, Poirier's dangerous front kick was something that he used to be known for in the early days of his UFC career. And he may not use this style these days, but his punch to his opponent's chests are hardly forgettable. And yeah, I'm talking about his featherweight days here, when he also happened to be a great wrestler. And don't get me wrong, he's still just as great as he once was, if not better. But his featherweight days were when we really saw his wrestling come up a lot. It was a common skill set that he leaned on back then to overwhelm his foes in the cage. But even today, his shot and finish are amazing, and more than enough to get even the strongest men down to the mat. Like, we all saw his double leg takedowns against Anthony Pettis, right? That was amazing, and yet, it looked so effortless. And Pettis is also a great fighter, just like most of Poirier's opponents. But that's never stopped Dustin from defeating them. Now, there are times that he can't strike them down because the other guy doesn't give him an opening. But that's where Dustin's amazing defensive ability comes in, saving him from any takedowns. And let me tell you, this guy's chin is made of steel. Like, it's absorbed even the hardest of blows and still remained intact. But it's not just his durability that's helped him survive so long, of course. He's got many other things working for him too. For one, Poirier's got a great sprawl, and he can always defend himself really well, even when he's pressed back into the fence. He'd use collar ties as well as some underhooks and easily drive his rivals away. Like, remember his fight against Khabib? Even though Dustin lost that one, his defensive work was just amazing, and his rival saw that too. After all, there's a reason why Khabib still praises him to this day. And when you earn the respect of someone who's as good as him, well, then you've earned the respect of everyone. There have been multiple instances when Khabib has publicly acknowledged how good Dustin is, and he's even congratulated him for his wins. You know, like that tweet applauding Dustin after his win over Michael Chandler at UFC 281? And even before that, in early 2021, Khabib praised Dustin, saying that he was levels above Conor because of how focused he was on his game and how much effort he was willing to put in to get the results he wanted. And he wasn't wrong. Dustin's hard work can't go unnoticed by anyone. I mean, have you seen the guy's Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills? This American fighter holds a black belt here, and he's finished 7 of his opponents through submissions. Dustin is most known for his Darce choke, and he's used it so many times that he's almost broken records. But this isn't the only one he uses. Nope, our guy's a very versatile fighter, and he knows when to switch up, just like he did in his fight against Max Holloway, where he locked his opponent in with the triangle choke. But that isn't all. Poirier is also a great fan of the arm and guillotine, and he's always ready to squeeze and wrap his opponents up. He even almost submitted Khabib with that one. And wait, while we're back on Khabib, let me tell you that he isn't the only one who has praised Dustin. Other amazing fighters like Justin Gaethje have said great things too, expressing how they've got tons of respect for Poirier. In fact, Justin made it a point to bring this up recently, before his and Dustin's fight in July 2023. He called Poirier a dog, remarking that what he'd done to McGregor was super impressive and unlike anything he'd seen before. And sure, some of that praise might be because of how much Gaethje despises McGregor, but that doesn't mean it wasn't genuine. Gaethje said that he'd have to be literally perfect if he even wants a shot at defeating Dustin. And you all know that that's one huge compliment, especially when it's coming from a potential rival. See, that means that Justin doesn't just respect Dustin. No, he's also very scared of fighting him. And can you even blame him? Because if self-proclaimed gods like McGregor can get scared of Poirier's destructive abilities, then honestly, anyone can. And even though the Notorious didn't own up to it himself, everyone could see the fear in his eyes during his pre-fight press conference before fighting Dustin. Poirier saw it too, saying how it looked like Conor was very unsure of himself and constantly trying to hype himself up with those crazy antics. It was like he wasn't trying to convince fans or reporters that he'd win. No, he was trying to convince himself, and that made Dustin feel really good. So from even so-called GOATs like Conor McGregor being terrified of him, to him being one of the best lightweights out there, this was why nobody wants to fight Dustin Poirier.